Wavelength.
Mental illness doesn't have to be a life sentence.
Alcohol addiction, abuse, misuse is the same all over the globe.
Sparking the combos about Adelaide.
So it made me feel very confident that if we did have it in the state, we were going to know about it.
You should be having.
There'll be guys that are trained, but they don't feel like they're good enough to take their shirt off.
Almost everyone is a culprit of doom scrolling. Anyone who has a mobile phone.
On Fresh 92.7.
Welcome to Wavelength, sparking the combos about Adelaide you should be having. I'm David, and tonight I have been absolutely abandoned by my regular co-hosts, Jamie and Hamish, which is just so rude. Jamie is off living it up on some tropical island in Western Australia, and Hamish got married over the weekend, so absolutely fair enough that he's not here. Instead, I'm joined by a very, very special guest, a friend of the pod, you might say, Angela Skujins, one of Adelaide's best reporters in my opinion. She writes for independent news site City Mag and In Daily and is generally just a damn pleasure to chat with. Welcome to Wavelength, Angela. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I don't think the listeners can see this, but I'm blushing by the compliments. Thank you so much.
I know, it was quite an intro.
Yeah.
Well, you're here today. We're going to be having some incredibly good chats about some of sort of the news that's been local news stories that have been going on that you might have missed. What are some of the highlights that we're going to be chatting about tonight, Angela?
So my rounds are City Council, the city in general, and culture. So we've got a smattering of different stories.
Awesome.
We've got the arena, the City Council's backflip on a big development by the state government.
That was controversial.
It is very controversial. I was there until 11:30 reporting on this for like 5.5 hours. Yes. I think we're going to discuss the funeral of the hospitality sector, if that's correct.
Yes.
And another story I've been working on, I recently published on Thursday. It's about transgender uni students and some of the extra challenges that they have to go through at uni and how the systems aren't really set up to help them navigate that. As well as we're going to chat about our new edition, which should hit the streets early December, and it's the Love edition, so think hot back summer. And the state government has invested $2 million into a new plant-based food incubator, which is really cool.
What a show we've got coming up for you guys, Angela. It's so excited to have these chats, you guys. Keep it tuned, though. You're listening to Wavelength.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Angela, did you see that funeral for the hospitality industry last Monday?
It was hard to miss it, so I did see it.
It certainly was a spectacle, hey?
Yeah. I remember when the press release came into my inbox, it definitely caught my eye. But maybe it does need to be a bit absurd for people to talk about it.
Exactly. I think that's very true. I mean, to sort of understand the background about this hospitality funeral, I spoke with one of the organisers of the demonstration, Simone Douglas from the Duke of Brunswick, who says because of the way restrictions are set up in SA, the entire industry is really going to suffer this summer.
Wavelength.
Simone, welcome to Wavelength. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. So I brought you on the show today because there was that amazing demonstration that happened earlier last week where there was a big funeral for the hospitality industry. I understand you're sort of the co-founder of the movement behind that. Can you tell us a bit about the demonstration and what it was all about?
Yeah, sure. So basically we pulled together all of the members of the Hospo Owners Collective and members of the live entertainment industry to, I suppose, mark what we see as the death of the South Australian hospitality industry. So on the 26th of October, when the Transition Committee announced that there would be no further easing of hospitality restrictions in the foreseeable future, and they moved the goalpost from 80% vaccination, 16 and up to 90% vaccination, 12 and up before that would be looked at. They basically killed off the entire Christmas season for pretty much every hospitality operator, live entertainer, or anyone that's kind of attached to the live music, entertainment or hospitality industry. So we thought that it was fitting that we let the Transition Committee know just how much of an impact that announcement made on that day. And with only now 5 weekends left to trade before Christmas, it's getting pretty serious at this point.
How important is the summer Christmas trading period to the hospitality industry here in Adelaide?
Yeah, look, it's a business critical time period. There's 12 weeks probably from the 1st of October through to the 31st of December where I would say 90% of hospitality venues, restaurants, cafes, small bars and live entertainers make anywhere between 35% and 50% of their annual revenue.
It's something that's been going on the last few weeks for sure. We've been hearing a lot of horror stories about venues not being able to survive under these current restrictions. I think one of the bigger ones was the Lion Arts Factory. That got a lot of attention. But is this happening all across the industry, or is it just certain larger venues that are being impacted?
It's actually more the smaller venues. So some large venues are impacted, absolutely, but it's realistically across the industry. From your solo acts who are, having to sell their musical instruments to pay their rent and their electricity because they're not getting the gigs that they used to get, along with, venues who have actually, so hospitality venues have actually been trading under restrictions now for 600 days. So they've never once gone back to 100% capacity and unrestricted trade. And I think that's something that the general public often don't understand because, you can go into a bar or a restaurant and hopefully get a table. You have a perception that they're busy or that they're booked out, but they're actually not booked out. They're just at capacity under current restrictions.
Well, what would you like to see change to make things easier for publicans and other hospo owners here in SA?
Yeah, look, what we're really asking for quite desperately is standing consumption indoors because you've got a lot of venues that aren't built for seated consumption. So we're looking for standing consumption indoors, and we're also looking for dancing in shared public spaces. So the things that you're allowed to do in a private function, we're asking that you be allowed to do those in any hospitality venue because scientifically there's no difference between the two in terms of the risk.
Wavelength.
That there was me chatting with Simone Douglas from the Duke of Brunswick about the funeral for the hospitality industry and I suppose what's going to happen this coming Christmas season for hospitality businesses. She did mention 35 to 50% of hospitality businesses in South Australia generate their revenue during this busy Christmas period, and they're going to lose a large chunk of that because there is no foreseeable easing of restrictions on them very soon. Angela, what did you make of it?
I think her concern is justified. She's probably listening to a lot of other people in the industry, and just from our reporting at City Mag, we're aware of a lot of businesses closing or on the cusp of about to close. And, if you look at the music industry, for example, you've got Enigma Bar, which is kind of like a mecca for metal music, non-mainstream music. They're almost about to close, but they kind of hang in the balance dependent on government grants.
Right.
And I think what the hospitality industry is calling for is a lifeline like the music industry where they can't continue to trade under these restrictions without government support. So to me, it sounds reasonable.
At the same time, these restrictions are in place for a reason, so we're told from the state government. I mean, it's a bit frustrating though because we were just saying come 23rd of November, things are going to change in South Australia. We will have COVID here, and that is a guaranteed thing.
Yeah.
If only we could have spent these last couple of months with no COVID in the state, just freely doing whatever we liked,
And maybe they could have generated some kind of cash reserve. So the day when they can't have a lot of people in, they could weather that storm. But on the 23rd of November, COVID will come into South Australia and we have to be prepared for when that happens.
If you're not ready, 23rd of November, COVID will be coming to South Australia. So roll up those sleeves, get that vaccination. That's the best thing you can be doing right now, guys. Anyway, coming up next, we are chatting about the next edition of City Mag. Super keen to hear about that from you, Angela. But right now, you're listening to Wavelength.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. I'm joined by Angela from City Mag in Daily this week. Angela, another story you covered this week was about transgender uni students and the things they're facing in the system these days. Can you tell us a bit about how you found out about this story?
So maybe a year ago, I was writing an article about a student studying fashion at TAFE, and they told me they're transgender, and they told me that while studying that they had been misgendered and misnamed. And since then, just from interviews that I've had with people, I'd come across this, just from the interviews that I've had with people, and I just started thinking about whether this was a bigger problem. So I put the feelers out and 3 people got in contact with me, and essentially this story is about that some of the extra work that they have to do to navigate the university and TAFE system. These are things that we don't have to do as cisgender people. And it sounds like it's quite a fraught time anyway, transitioning, but they have this extra burden of reaching out to their tutors or to their educators prior to starting a course and discussing with them how they want to be referred to, when you and I don't have to do that.
What are some of the specific things they raised as like what experiences they've had?
So one of them told me that while studying, their tutor revealed in front of the class that they were experiencing mental health issues and they dead named them. And dead naming is when you refer to someone via their birth name, not their preferred name.
They told the whole class that?
This is what this person has alleged.
Wow.
And after that class, this tutor again dead named them, and they went to the counsellor and said that they couldn't do it anymore, and their counsellor recommended, or they discussed dropping the class. And I've seen the email.
That doesn't seem like the right solution, surely.
And we went to the uni to ask about how this happened, and they said that they couldn't comment on the individual stories. But things like that where these students have complained and nothing has been done to fix their experience or the structure itself.
And it's clearly, I suppose, a systemic, repetitive trend that we're witnessing here in these institutions, which I think that is quite odd, because I think the general perspective of a university, of an place of education, is like quite progressive. And so I find this quite shocking in a way.
I think it was shocking for us as well, and I think it was probably shocking for them, because if you look at how many complaints are filed by trans students against tertiary institutions, tertiary education institutions, it's quite low. And I spoke to some of these students about, why do you think that not a lot of students are complaining? And they say, why would we out ourselves and put ourselves in further danger when nothing is going to change? So I think maybe from the university or TAFE's perspective, they don't really know that this is happening because no one's communicating it to them, and the students don't want to because it could put them in danger.
What a strange rock and a hard place situation there.
Yeah.
Is there any sort of like long-term solution for this though? Because it just seems like it has to be a gradual societal, like these teachers clearly maybe if what these students are saying is true, probably should brush up on their knowledge of transgender issues.
I think it's not being enforced or regulated. So the university and TAFE are recommending that all tutors go through ally training or equal opportunity training, but their engagement with students isn't being monitored. So even if they've done this, check training because they have to.
So that's mandatory. That's something
mandatory.
They have to do. Right, okay.
But you hear politicians doing it all the time, like the state government when they were accused of some of the staff as being sexually assaulted. The Liberal Party and the Labor Party went through inclusivity training. And I'm just curious about how effective these trainings are. Is it just something that you do when you've been called out?
I always find it so odd when they do these courses which just are like, here's how to be a decent person.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
And it shouldn't be put back on the trans students or, the victim of sexual assault to have to complain for these people to just be decent people.
I mean, it's not too hard just to be a nice guy.
Apparently it is.
Yeah. Apparently it is.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you so much for doing that incredible reporting. It's such an important issue. Up next, we've got more from Angela, and it's a very exciting story about the state government backing the South Australian plant-based food sector, which we are both stoked about. But right now, you're listening to Wavelength.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. So, Angela, as a vegetarian, this story has me pretty happy. The state government has recently announced it's turbocharging the plant-based food sector. What's going on there?
So, in June this year, the state government published in their state budget that they were going to pump $2 million into a new plant-based food incubator.
Great.
And as City Mag's plant-based reporter, this made me really excited. So I sent some emails and I found out that they were just allocating some funding to the state government's, food lab, which is up in Waite. And the $2 million is used to buy a range of equipment so that businesses who want to enter this market can go to the state government and be like, hey, can you help us trial making vegan ham? And you can make it in the lab with these amazingly intelligent scientists, these food scientists.
That's incredible. And that's just a facility that I suppose entrepreneurs can access if they have like a plan and everything set in place.
I think that's their plan. But
Cool.
if you're a business that wants to do that, you have to go to Food SA, which is the state government's, food department.
I mean, so there's this whole process. That's fine. I do think that it is absolutely incredible that they're getting behind this. I mean, I've been following and reporting on plant-based food for a while now. It's such an exciting industry. I saw that V2 Food, they're an Australian plant-based food company. They're about to crack into China with like plant-based dumplings.
Nice.
Like, yum.
But
Give me that.
It makes me curious as to why they would need to do that, because Asia have a really strong mock meat culture anyway. That's where it came from.
I just think that they just want to try and dominate the world.
Why
I mean,
not?
they've got they're the Hungry Jack's burger.
Yeah, cool.
Why not keep going?
Have you had it, the Rebel Whopper?
I love the Rebel Whopper.
Yeah, me too. I love it.
It is my favourite burger. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, especially at 2 a.m.
Oh, any time of the day. I could eat it for breakfast.
Yeah. Well, what's funny with this story is the Minister for Primary Industries, David Basham. He comes from 6 generations of dairy farming. And I asked him whether he's ever eaten a veggie dog or a veggie hamburger.
Yeah.
And he says he has, and while some of them have tasted like cardboard, they tend to be better. So what's really interesting about this lab is that not only are they prioritising that these products actually work and the proteins interact with how they expect them to, but that it tastes good.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it though. I remember, I don't know, it wasn't even that long ago, 5 or 6 years ago when I first went veggie, the offerings for like plant-based meat were so disgusting. Just did taste like cardboard. In the last few years, the amount of changes, the amount of innovation in the space has been so fast that like everything now, all the plant-based meats that I eat, they're just delicious.
They are delicious, and I think we have a lot of accessibility that we didn't have before. So you and I, if we're like hungry and maybe have had some drinks at 2 a.m, we can go and get a burger. Whereas
It's
5
not
years
hard,
ago, you
yeah.
couldn't have done that.
No, it's not hard. Yeah,
No.
when I graduated uni, I mean, when I was in like high school, there was like no options.
Yeah.
I mean, I was still eating meat then, but like you'd go out and like you would not be able to find anywhere. You can go to like any store now, any fast food place, and you can just grab a vegan burger. It's the best.
And I think it's cool that the state government is allocating this funding because it shows that they think that this is a market that's really exciting. So
Fully.
even if, they don't want to eat a veggie burger, they can recognise that there are people that are hungry for it.
They are hungry for it,
Yeah.
aren't they? I mean, it's, I guess, part of this state government's long tradition of we're going to space soon. It's like some crazy things going on in SA in these sort of like new industries.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Everyone that says South Australia is a sleepy state, I don't think have been here for a while, or have
I
had
agree.
like a good drink here for a while.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that story. We're going to get right back into the music now, guys, though. You're listening to Wavelength.
Wavelength.
Well, that brings us to the end of the show tonight, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the Wavelength podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. You can listen back to our old episodes right now, and you'll be the first to know when tonight's episode goes up. Thank you so much for joining me this week, Angela. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you can come back to the show soon.
Thank you so much for having me on the pod. I've loved it.
No worries at all. Anyway, guys, don't go anywhere. Up next, you've got Deep with Easy G. You're listening to Fresh.
Wavelength.